The Adventure of James and the Maiden Isabella. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was a young prince named James. James was the son of the king and queen of the kingdom, and he lived in a magnificent castle with his family. The kingdom was a beautiful place, with lush green forests, sparkling rivers, and majestic mountains. James was a kind and brave prince, loved by all who knew him. He had a passion for adventure, and would often spend his days exploring the countryside and discovering new things. One day, while out on a ride through the forest, James came across a mysterious old woman. The old woman was dressed in tattered robes and carried a staff, and she looked as though she had been wandering through the forest for years. James was curious, and he approached her to ask if she needed any help. "I do not need your help, young prince," the old woman replied. "But I can offer you a gift. A gift that will bring you great fortune and happiness." James was intrigued, and he asked the old woman what the gift was. "It is a magical amulet," the old woman said. "It will grant you the power to control the elements of nature. With this amulet, you can make the wind blow, the rain fall, and the earth tremble." James was fascinated by the old woman's offer, and he eagerly accepted the amulet. He thanked her and rode back to the castle, eager to try out his new power. James returned to the castle, eager to try out his new amulet. He couldn't wait to see what he could do with the power to control the elements of nature. As he rode through the gates of the castle, he noticed that the sky had turned dark and ominous. A storm was coming. Without a second thought, James raised his amulet and whispered a few words under his breath. Suddenly, a gust of wind picked up, blowing away the dark clouds and revealing a beautiful blue sky. James was amazed at what he had just done. He couldn't wait to see what else he could do with his amulet. So, he spent the next few days practicing his powers, controlling the wind, rain, and sun. One day, while he was practicing his powers, James heard a cry for help. He looked around and saw a group of villagers in the distance, struggling to put out a fire that had broken out in their village. Without hesitation, James raised his amulet and commanded the wind to blow. A strong gust of wind blew through the village, extinguishing the fire and saving the villagers from disaster. News of James' heroic deed quickly spread throughout the kingdom, and he became even more beloved by his people. They praised him for his courage and his powers, and he was hailed as a hero. But as time passed, James began to feel a sense of restlessness. He had conquered the elements and saved his people from danger, but he still felt that something was missing. He longed for a new adventure, a new challenge to test his abilities. One day, while James was wandering through the forest, he came across a beautiful maiden. She was sitting by the side of a river, her long hair cascading down her back, and her eyes fixed on the water. James was immediately smitten with her. He approached her and introduced himself. The maiden smiled and introduced herself as Isabella. James soon discovered that Isabella was a skilled archer and an adventurer, just like him. They quickly became friends, spending their days exploring the forest and going on exciting adventures together. As their friendship grew, James began to realize that he was falling in love with Isabella. He couldn't stop thinking about her, and he knew that she felt the same way about him. But their happiness was short-lived. One day, while they were exploring a cave, they came across a group of bandits. The bandits were fierce and dangerous, and they were intent on robbing and killing anyone who crossed their path. James knew that he had to act quickly to protect Isabella. He raised his amulet and commanded the earth to shake. The ground beneath the bandits' feet trembled, causing them to lose their balance and fall to the ground. Isabella and James quickly ran out of the cave, but they could hear the bandits pursuing them. James knew that they had to come up with a plan if they were going to escape. James and Isabella ran through the forest, with the bandits hot on their heels. James knew that he had to use his powers to keep them safe. He raised his amulet and commanded the wind to blow, creating a powerful gust that knocked the bandits off their feet. James and Isabella continued to run, but they knew that they couldn't keep this up forever. As they came to a fork in the road, James had an idea. He whispered a few words under his breath and commanded the earth to open up. A deep fissure appeared in the ground, separating James and Isabella from the pursuing bandits. The bandits were forced to turn back, and James and Isabella were able to make their escape. They returned to the safety of the castle, where they were greeted as heroes. But despite their victory, James couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something missing in his life. He loved Isabella, and he loved his people, but he couldn't help feeling that there was something more out there. One night, while he was gazing up at the stars, James saw a shooting star streak across the sky. He closed his eyes and made a wish, hoping that it would come true. The next morning, James woke up to find that Isabella was gone. He searched the castle and the surrounding countryside, but there was no sign of her. He was heartbroken and didn't know what to do. Just as he was about to give up hope, he heard a familiar voice calling his name. He turned around and saw Isabella standing before him, a smile on her face. "I'm sorry I had to leave," she said. "But I had to go on my own adventure, to find my own destiny. And now that I have, I can come back to you, James." The two of them embraced, and James knew that he had finally found what he had been looking for all along. He had found love, adventure, and a sense of purpose. And he knew that he would never stop searching for new adventures and new ways to use his powers for good.